Jamaica, baby, they made me to be the greatest. Serving the deed of my creators. Fresh off of my high haters. It's the king again. Magdalene, Chauffeur, bragging and boasting.
Yo, what it do, y'all? It's your boy Spend Dollars, aka DollarBoiEnt. Welcome back to the channel. It's another late night reaction, and I'm bringing y'all the most highly requested video that y'all been asking me to react to. The history of Toronto's Rexdale Crips. I did the other one, the Driftwood Crips. I did the Rolex Hami video. I did the TK of the North, Houdini, City of the Foot. Like, if you haven't seen those already, if you're new to the channel, you could check those out. Just go to the playlist, you know, type it in, or I'll have it linked in this video. But yeah, guys, y'all been asking me for a while to do this, man. We finally here, so let's get to it.
Tragic story from Rexdale now. One man is dead after a drive-by shooting. Sadly,
at the scene of yet another daytime shooting in Toronto, this time the Rexdale neighborhood.
It's an all too familiar scene in Rexdale.
Shout out to everybody in Rexdale.
Massive police
man
cars.
shot and killed in Rexdale.
You know what I'm saying? Like I said, we don't choose sides. We just judge the music.
Rexdale's a notoriously known neighborhood located in the northwest corner of Toronto. It's a large area consisting of countless different buildings, complexes, residential areas, and essentially different little communities. Unfortunately, dating back decades, this area of the city's been known for gun violence, drug trafficking, and it's been home to a ton of different gangs, all seeming to have one thing in common: being Crips. The origins of the gang can be traced back decades, so let's take a look back at the history of the Rexdale Crips. Let's first take a look at the founding of Rexdale as a whole. We start all the way back in 1955, when a real estate developer named Rex Heslop purchased farmland in the area for $110,000.
That's it.
He then constructed houses and created a small neighborhood. The properties were listed at between $10,000 to $12,000. They sold well, and soon enough, 330 families were living in this new development.
Your man was
and
caking
Rexdale was
right
born.
there.
As the community grew, Rex himself then built a large center that he would call Rexdale Plaza,
Your man had
which
that
is now
bag.
known as Rexdale Mall. Over the next decade, Rexdale continued to grow, and different housing started to be constructed all over the area. Rexdale's first residents were English and Scottish.
That's one thing I would like to tell you guys. Listen, if you ever come across some large money, invest in land. That's the most important thing you can invest in that will always bring back results no matter what. Stocks, that's better than stocks. That's better than almost everything. Land. All right, if you get some bread, get land property, and you could build from that. All right, if I get some bread, I'm getting land.
But things would soon change in the 1960s, when major amendments were made to the Canada's immigration legislation, essentially making it easier for people to enter the country.
Why
Over
we
the
have to
next few
go with the
decades,
history lesson to
influx
get
of
to the
Caribbean and West
Rexdale
Indian
Crips?
immigrants,
Like, was this
followed by
necessary?
Somalian and Ethiopian, began to
Okay,
slowly
it
migrate
is, it
into
is.
Toronto.
It
By the
is.
late 1970s, a once predominantly European Rexdale found itself diversified and became a multicultural area.
It's not a bad thing.
Rexdale was a peaceful area for a period of time, thanks to the availability of manual labor jobs to immigrants. Unfortunately, the economy would soon cause things to change. In the 1980s, those same factory jobs that were once plentiful
Started
had
closing.
now become scarce, with the introduction of more office-based work and jobs that required higher qualifications.
You know, it's the scary thing. A lot of that is still going on to this day. They have robots now that are taking people's jobs, drones. You know what I'm saying? Amazon got drones to deliver stuff now. Like, that's taken away from jobs now. I appreciate technology. Technology is a beautiful thing, but sometimes it could be our worst enemy. Because look what technology has caused. It has caused pollution. It has caused radiation with all these nuclear power plants. We got nuclear missiles, guys. That shit could end the whole world. Technology created that. You know what I'm saying? I think, like, at some point we should have been like, all right, let's just chill out. Let's just improve the things that we need to improve. Like, why we need to have fucking missiles that destroy the world. You know, it's scary. Something really scary. But yeah, I'm sorry. That's just a little thought that I had with this.
Things would then start to go downhill for Rexdale as a community throughout the next decade. In the late 1980s is when basically all hell broke loose. With no jobs around,
gang
a lot
started.
of residents, specifically young men, turned to the streets to try and find a way to make a living. Now this is around the time where crack cocaine had just hit the street market, which only amplified the crime in the area. Now, as I mentioned, the first immigrants in the 60s to arrive in Rexdale were mostly Caribbean and West Indian descent, with people from Somalia and Ethiopia coming shortly after.
Shout out to them.
Now this offset arrival of different ethnicities, along with the shortage of jobs, and now this new drug, crack,
created
it
tension.
caused some tension within the community
Just said
that
it.
often resulted in violent clashes. This would lead young men in the area to start to come together to form groups and cliques. Now they wouldn't be classified as a gang at the time. These were just informal packs of friends who just stood by each other.
Just block.
But things would soon change.
They weren't repping
Now, at
gangs,
the
they were
time,
repping blocks.
Gang culture like Crips and Bloods was already booming in Los Angeles, United States. It then spread throughout the US, reaching east out to New York, and it eventually made its way into Toronto. It seemed like the young men in the city accepted the newfound gang culture with open arms, so formal Crips and Blood gangs started to materialize around the city. In Rexdale's case, all the gangs that began to sprout out within the city all shared one common trait, being Crips. But the founding of the different gangs in Rexdale didn't all happen at the same time. It first began with a group of young men in Jamestown, who were previously named the Jamestown Crew. Now Jamestown is a housing co-op located on Jamestown Crescent, also known as Doomstown.
Is
Now
Sizzlack
this
from
crew
there?
decided to claim
No, I
Crips,
don't think he
so
was.
essentially a new gang was created, which would be called Newborn Crips, or simply the Jamestown Crips. A short time later, another group within Rexdale began to catch on to the new culture, and they too decided to make an official gang. And so, Stovetop Crips were founded. Now Stovetop is a nickname for a housing co-op, located between 1801 and 1827 Martin Grove Road. Jamestown and Stovetop were both Crip gangs, and were aligned, but they remained as their own entities respectfully. Now the Crips culture influenza would continue spreading throughout Rexdale.
That shit
from
was
its root
spreading
of
like
Jamestown,
wildfire out there.
and now spread a bit east of Stovetop, to a complex of town.
Bro, you know how shocking it was for me to find this shit out? Like, I never knew that Toronto and Canada had it like that. You know, we always hear stories that it's a nice place, everybody's nice, you know, compared to America. But, like, to find out that y'all got a crazy gang scene out there and really got some streets and hoods out there, like over here, bro, that was like, wow. Because I always said I wanted to move to Canada. Now I'm like, fuck that shit. I ain't moving over there. Nah, I'm fucking with y'all. I don't bang, man. We here for the money. But yeah, shout out to everybody, bro. It's all love.
Townhouses on Orpington Crescent. Now the group that existed in the complex before Crips had alliance with the group in Jamestown, so naturally they adapted the Crips card as well. This faction would be known as the O-Block Crips.
O-Block?
Now with 3 official Crip gangs in Rexdale, it would still continue to spread. It found its way to a set of townhouses in a neighborhood on Mount Olive Drive. Now there
You
was
might as
already
well
a group
just
in the
say the
area
whole
who
Rexdale,
named
bro.
themselves the Mount Olive Crew. But once they were introduced to the Crip culture by their locals of Jamestown, they conformed to it quickly. With another set being consumed by the new ideology, sure enough, the Crip way of life continued to take over Rexdale. It now reached Tandridge Crescent, which is a neighborhood a ways southeast of the other Crips. This is one of the larger areas of Rexdale, consisting of multiple complexes and a couple high-rise buildings as well. The group that existed, who were also aligned with Jamestown, called themselves the Tandridge Crips, another group of young men that proved to be open to becoming Crips. With mostly all gangs in Rexdale identifying as Crips, 2 more groups would end up joining the pack. A group that lived in a set of buildings on Humberline Drive at some point began to claim Crips, as well as a group of youth that went by Bergamot Crew, who were situated in a patch of buildings on Bergamot Avenue. Therefore, 2 more factions were created, the Humberline and Bergamot Crips. These new additions would make the area of Rexdale home to a whopping 7+ different Crips gangs.
Wow.
Now with all of Rexdale being consumed by Crips, it seemed like things wouldn't be too violent within the area, considering all the gangs identified as the same prefix, but this wasn't the case. Things would change after an incident that took place in August of the year.
That's what shocks me, is like everybody's repping one flag, but then they start beefing with each other and banging on each other.
2000. On Tuesday, August 29th,
We about to find out
police
why.
responded to a shots fired call to 1817 Martin Grove Road and found a victim suffering gunshot wounds to his back. He was rushed to the hospital but died. The victim, was identified as 22-year-old Lloyd Dean.
Every time they
went
say
by
rush to the
Blaine,
hospital, I know they're gonna say he
well-known
died.
Mount Olive Crips member. Now the Jamestown's Crips were blamed for the murder, and so a war that would end up going on for decades was then born. With the new tension between the two Crip sets, Jamestown and Mount Olive,
See how one
other
action
sets
could set off
within
a chain
Rexdale
of
were forced
events.
to side with one of the two gangs.
It has other actions,
Given a tough
reactions.
choice, all the other Crip sets decided that they would pair with the Jamestown side of the battle, and so Mount Olive Crips were left to fend for themselves.
Wow.
Other sets within Rexdale were forced to side with one of the two gangs. Given a tough choice, all the other Crip sets decided that they would pair with the Jamestown side
The
of the battle,
OGs.
and so Mount Olive Crips were left to fend for themselves against all the opposing Crip forces. This war would result in countless homicides and shootings around Rexdale over the years, with all the blocks being within walking distance of each other.
Walking distance.
Now throughout time, Mount Olive wouldn't be the only block that the other Rexdale Crips would end up beefing with. They all shared common enemies, with the up top Driftwood Crips, Southside Falstaff Crips, as well as the Ardwick Bloods and Dixon City Bloods, amongst others. All of these feuds converted not only Rexdale, but almost all of Northeast Toronto into an active war zone.
Wow.
Now, the Toronto police didn't just have a blind eye the entire time while gangs around the city started to form and take over the inner streets. Over the years, they found themselves nabbing individuals here and there.
They created
for what would be
gang
considered
task
petty
force
charges,
and
before eventually realizing they needed to look at the bigger picture and put together a bigger project.
a task force.
In May of 2006, gun violence in Toronto was at an all-time high. Police had a lot on their plate, with a bunch of different gangs from throughout the city at war with each other. Amongst them were the Jamestown Crips, which after investigation seemed to be a good contender for a raid. To the police, the Jamestown crew were the center and the origins of the Crips in Rexdale, and therefore had some type of influence on the rest of the gang structure, so they decided to focus on them.
You take out
Rexdale
the
as a
head, you
whole
knock out
were
the body.
responsible for enough shootings to be a prime target for police, so they put together what would be dubbed Project XXX. In late May, 600 officers from different forces around the GTA joined together, and on an early morning they raided around 60 residences in Jamestown Crescent and also places associated with the Crips gang, ending with 78 people being arrested. At the end of the raid, they seized what was said to be hundreds of thousands of dollars, as well as 15 kilos of cocaine,
Wow.
which police said has a street value of over $2 million. The bust
Chichi,
also
get the yayo.
resulted in 20 guns, including an AK-47 and MAC-10 being seized, as well as 2 vehicles related to the gang. Bill Blair, who was the police chief through many violent years in Toronto and piloted various raids, boasted about dismantling the gang, saying that quote-unquote the leadership of the Jamestown crew had been surgically removed from the community. A year later, he would end up raiding one of the Jamestown Crips' enemies, the Driftwood Crips. Now years continued to pass in the city, and not much seemed to change within the anatomy of the Rexdale Crips.
You should know when a raid happens, there always gonna be another raid after that. Like if you see people getting raided, you should be taking precautions to like clean out your safe houses, make sure you ain't got nothing in your house. Like whenever you see a big ass raid go down, you should know if you're in that lifestyle, like it can happen to you at any time. So gotta move accordingly, guys. You know, street politics, street knowledge, street wisdom. Like if I'm a hustler on the block and the dude across the street gets raided, I'm thinking, okay, they're gonna come for me next. It's just common sense.
All of the sets continue to get along with each other, except for the Mount Olive Crips. With this ongoing feud, along with the beef they have with a handful of other gangs, the shootings and violence within Rexdale sadly became a norm.
Intensified.
Approaching the early 2010s, YouTube and other social media platforms were really starting to pick up, and frankly, they only provoked and instigated beefs.
Yep.
Now you had rappers from all over Toronto making music videos and rap
That's
songs
Jeezy
and
Lo.
posting them on YouTube. And with things like Facebook enhancing word of mouth, these songs and videos would spread like wildfire, especially when the music was actually good. This was again a new way for gang members to diss, taunt, and mock each other.
They just
and
took it to a
ultimately
whole
just
new
continued a
level.
cycle of gang violence in the city. There was now a new generation of young men, so fresh gangs would begin to form.
Sad to say, but like social media, YouTube, the internet, it made gangbanging commercialized almost. Like everybody wants to be a part of a gang. It's a trend. You know, the bad thing too about it is like now you got social media involved, and it's like people that you would have never known how they look or seen before. Now you know how they look. You know where they be at. You know, they popping shit. Like it's just created a whole bunch of problems. But You know, it's up to you if you want to choose to use the social media for negativity or positivity. You could use it for whatever you want. It's just these people used it for their gang shit, you know?
Such as IDS.
And it created more and more problems and tension.
Another gang was also created called Monsters, which was a faction of Mount Olive Crips, which allegedly was named after the monsters in Space Jam. Both these new additions would continue the trend of violence in Rexdale, and this activity once again caught the attention of police, and so they began investigating the new wave of gangs. This time, their main target was the Monsters gang, attempting to step in between the war of Mount Olive Crips and the rest of Rexdale. This would be a large, multi-year investigation, dubbed Project Pharaoh, which would eventually be executed in June of 2015.
GTA?
On June 4th, police executed over 50 search warrants targeting the complex on Mount Olive Drive, as well as residents that were associated with the gang. 32 alleged gang members were arrested, and police seized 14 guns, as well as 33 kilos of cocaine, estimated to be worth around $3.8 million, and just under $200,000 in cash. The police had once again put together a successful operation in hopes of tearing apart a ruthless gang, but the raids on sets around Rexdale over the years had seemed to just be putting a small dent in the foundation of the gang as a whole.
Damn,
Crime would continue at a steady rate over the years. Rexdale has been a violent area for decades now, with sadly no end in sight. The same gangs that existed back then,
whoa!
Crime would continue at a steady rate over the years. Rexdale has been a
This was the shooter right here. He ran off.
Violent area for decades now, with sadly
this one right here, wow, they got caught lacking.
No end in sight.
Homie jetted. I don't know if he's shooting at this guy on the floor or the one that's running away. Oh no, he was shooting at that one, but then he just stands over him.
Same gangs that existed back then still exist
that dude
presently,
is dead.
with even more additions. The same feuds that were relevant back then can still be traced to this day, which results in a never-ending loop of gang violence. New rappers from Rexdale continue to emerge and shine a bigger spotlight on the area. Now for police, it seems like it's hard to keep up with gangs all throughout the city, let alone Rexdale and its abundance of Crips gangs. Unfortunately, it looks like the gang culture throughout Rexdale will be something prevalent for now, until some major changes are made. Until then, I guess it's up to the gangs themselves to dictate how safe they want their own neighborhood to be.
That's what it should be about. You know, that's what it should only be about, is protecting the neighborhood, getting money. And, you know, sometimes it turns into something else. It turns into robbing and you know, I would advise younger kids, man, don't join a gang if you're not ready for the consequences, if you ain't about that life, because it comes with a lot of crazy situations, man. You know, but I do like the brotherhood. You know what I'm saying? I love that feeling when you with your homies, you know, they're gonna ride for you, they show you that love, but sometimes it's not always love. You know, so you gotta pick and choose wisely what you want to be a part of, you know. And also, you know, just follow your dreams and work on your goals, man. You could be whatever you want to be in life. You know what I'm saying? Don't let people persuade you or like, how you say it, not bully you, but like when somebody's trying to force you to join them, or like the peer pressure. Don't fold under peer pressure, guys. You know what I'm saying? Be your own person. You want to do something, do it. All right? So that's all I would say to the young boys that are thinking about being in the streets. It's not all fun and games, and it's not all rap lyrics and money, and they glamorize that, but you don't see the ugly side to it, you know. And that's pretty much all I got on that. So yeah, man, this was a good video. It was better than the other one I seen, the Driftwood. This one was more informative. I liked the history lesson in the beginning. At first I was like, why is he doing all this? But it made sense. You got to go back in the history to show you how the neighborhood developed to where it's at now. And yeah, that's pretty much it, man. Any other videos from Mind Soul 6 you want me to check out, let me know in the comment section. I'm gonna do the Wasp Gang one next. All right, sometime this week I'm gonna do that, so stay tuned for that. If you're new to the channel, don't forget, hit the like button and subscribe. Follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. It's your boy Dollars. I'm a holla. I'm out.